Thank you, madam. You do me great honor with that introduction. I must tell you with the frankness of true friendship that I was somewhat inclined to decline the great honor of addressing you. I have never considered myself a great orator like Mr. Henry or Mr. Lee, and I have certainly never earned the laurels of a scholar. And there is no way that I could speak forth with such eloquence as the speakers who have come before and who will come after. But upon contemplation, I realized it might be thought of as prideful on my part not to speak to you. And it is indeed a worthy occasion, this anniversary of the first shots fired in our late war with England. And while I cannot argue the finer points of many of the things that you are discussing here, I wish Mr. Madison were here to explain it in greater detail. I can speak to you some from my personal experience. You see me before you in the uniform that you have come to know as the Commander-in-Chief of the Revolutionary Army. But in reality, it was designed as a colonel in the Fairfax County Independent Company of Men. A company of men independent of the government, but willing to arm themselves and be ready to stand up for their rights. I took over command of several independent companies of men before the fighting actually began. And another misconception I would like to clear up for you. The war began not for our independence. Many of us in Virginia and the rest of the colonies enjoyed the government we had once had under England. It had been considered the greatest government in the world. But slowly, systematically, it had begun to change and corrupt itself. And so the fighting was not at first about independence. The fighting at first was to assert all rights that belonged to us as free men. Gradually, after the enormities and cruelties of the war occurred, we realized that there was no reconciliation, but we must strike out on our own. The Constitution, of which I was president of the convention, is not a perfect document. But I will say this. That document is little short of a miracle that such a document could be formed to meet the needs of so many different people. And it has this to recommend it. It has within itself a safe and stable way to make changes so that if future generations find things that they do not like, they may, within prescribed limits, change the document to suit the needs of future generations. But I would warn against any other way attempting to change the meaning, the clear meaning of the document. And this leads me to a quote I heard Mr. Adams say, that the revolution actually occurred in the hearts and the minds of the people before the fighting began. What concerns me is that perhaps there might be another revolution. I talked to a gentleman on the streets of the federal city here, and he told me that while he did not own a gun, he felt that it was okay because the Second Amendment allowed those people to have them. To which I did not argue at the moment, but I would point out to him the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution does not give you the right to carry a gun. The Constitution of the United States does not give anyone any rights whatsoever. What the Constitution is a contract between we the people and our government, allowing our government very specific and prescribed powers. And those powers that are not prescribed for the federal government or already given to state governments are preserved to the people.
Yes, the people!
In our form of government, it will always be the people who must rule. If future generations forget that, it will not bode well. But the future will belong to the living. The reverse of our great seal is of an unfinished pyramid. Now I and my fellows have laid the base of that pyramid. It is the future generations, under the eye of the all-seeing grand architect of the universe, to complete the work that we have started. And I will say this in closing. If we cannot make from this country of ours, with its vast natural resources, and with the liberties won for you by your forebears in battle, never enjoyed before by any peoples in the world. If we cannot make from this a great, happy, and prosperous nation, then you will have only yourselves to blame.